and welcome back to Feel Good with Carly. Hi, you guys. Happy Wednesday, or like we like to say, happy hump day. I don't really feel like it means anything when you're a parent. If it's a weekend or the middle of the week, like, usually you say happy hump day when you're looking forward to the weekend, because you're like that many days closer. But when you're a parent, like, what is a weekend? I don't know, because usually we're at baseball or dance. But here's the thing. These are the days, you guys. These are the days, and we're loving it. We are loving it. So happy Wednesday, wherever you're listening in from or watching. If you're on YouTube, you're watching. Hello. It's good to see you. If you are listening on Spotify, hello. If you're listening on Apple, hello. I would love if you guys could give me a rating and leave a comment, because I see them and I read them and I'm very appreciative. And when I share the podcast out, I think it helps other people to connect and just build this community that we're in this space together, and just to read your guys' feedback. And I appreciate that. And I love you, and I'm kissing you. You love that. Okay. So last week on the podcast, we talked about, it was kind of like a recap and where I was at in May. We talked about if we're going to have more kids or not. I answered some of your guys' questions. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go give it a listen. This morning, I actually drove an hour north to go film a podcast I was a guest on a show with a brand or a studio called The Film Garage, which was really cool. They have such a cool, professional, beautiful, aesthetic setup. And it's just so cool to come across other entrepreneurs in my area. I live in a very small town in Idaho who are on the same path as me in our entrepreneurship, and they have a really cool story. So I thought about having them on as guests as I get more on a roll with my podcast down the road. But it's just podcast day. I filmed there, I'm filming here, and we're going to talk about marriage and what it means to stay in your marriage when it's not easy and what that looks like. And the saying that really keeps standing out in my mind is in sickness and in health, and what that means. So I want to be as vulnerable as I possibly can on this podcast while also protecting my marriage and just like where I'm at. But I had an opportunity this like last year to really honor that saying in sickness and in health, and like what that meant to me as like my marital vow. And it's so crazy how in life we can hear, how many times have you heard that saying, and how it can just mean completely different things to you, and how it can resonate differently and just really stick with you differently as you gain experience and as you just grow and mature and, like put experience under your belt, basically. So when I was first married, I've been married twice. This is the last one. I'm not doing it again. When I was first married, I was so young. My first marriage, we'll just call it my first marriage. And I just, I was young and I was naive, and I didn't understand the complexities of relationships and sharing life together. And, when you're in a relationship, maybe I was just this way, not to speak for you, but it's easy to not think of the peril and the trial and the doom and the mishaps and the things you're going to face that aren't pretty, that aren't aesthetic, that aren't Instagram worthy, that aren't easy. Holy shit, marriage is hard. And you can be married to the most perfect prince, princess, Prince Charming, queen, slay, whoever, and it's still really freaking hard, because when you combine two people's lives and you're trying to like mesh them into one and coincide and live and thrive and just grow together, it's hard, because you also change, you also mature, you also want different things at different points in your life. And it's hard to share that with someone and to trust them and to line those things up. And it's just hard, And so in my first marriage, there was so much that I didn't know that I know now. And my first marriage never would have worked out anyways, because we're just very, very different people. I do like a big part of that, I think, was a failure, because my first husband was an alcoholic. He had a problem. And he talks about it very openly. And so I don't feel like I'm sharing anything that's just like, not my story to share, because that was a part of my story. So that's also hard, like when it's my own experience. But we just wanted very different things. And, he was sick. Anyone who is an addict it's a sickness. And I didn't really believe that then. I didn't really understand that then to what I understand now, because I feel like in every corner of my life, I feel like there has been experiences with addicts, and it has really helped me to understand and view people as people, and that people are sick when they're addicts, and that it's truly like a sickness, and it's a struggle. Like it's a struggle, is the same as somebody would struggle with mental health. And I've learned a lot about addiction and how like there's dependent addicts who like people who are like so far down that they're literally needing that substance to function in their life. They're like dependent upon that. And then there's people who just really struggle with like addictive personality, like addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or porn or gambling or whatever. It's just really complex. And I just learned so much from my first marriage, and I didn't think that I was like pocketing any of that to use later on in my life. But now, like where I'm at in my marriage and just, where I'm at personally, like I am so grateful for all the crap that I went through and all of the hardships that I went through. And it's so hard to have that perspective when you're going through it, or even like years after going through it, because I think there also comes shame with it, and there comes like doubt in yourself, and there comes like, there's just a lot of emotions that go into something like a divorce, and there's just so many different complexities that come with that and that you can feel. And, I don't think that if you would have told me when I was going through all of it, my divorce and just like trying to move on from that chapter, that I would be later on in life talking on a podcast how I was grateful for that, I would have been like, yeah, freaking right. But I just feel inspired to share that with you today, that your trials and really hard moments in your life and hardships and dead ends and broken pieces of you can be used as such a powerful tool for you later on in life. And I'm not saying that to say like, oh, don't be sad about it. Like you'll be grateful for this later, because I think you should honor those feelings and like where you're at, but just know that like, if it can give you any sense of hope or light to like look down the road to know that you're going to make it, and that maybe one day it will all make sense and it will all come full circle and it will help you in a way, I'm here to tell you that it will. Because where I'm at in my marriage, I've really had to take a step back and just really learn that like humans are just so complex, and we, for the most part, are trying our best. And the one thing that I have learned is like you can choose your marriage. You can choose your marriage, and you can choose to stay in your marriage, and you can choose to honor and love your marriage for what it is, even if it's, I hate when people say, well, it's not perfect. It's like, well, it's just, I get annoyed by like such obvious things. Like that's so obvious, like nothing is perfect. So don't say that. But even in the most picture perfect looking marriage, like there's so much more that is happening behind closed doors than anyone would think. And I'm not speaking specifically for like me and where I'm at, but just remember that like in general, if you follow people on Instagram or Facebook, or they go to your church or then your community, and you look at them and you think, gosh, their marriage is just like so picture perfect, it looks like amazing, just know that everyone's struggling probably in some capacity, or fighting, or something is going on that maybe you don't know about that makes them a little more relatable, whether they're willing to share that or not. Because marriage isn't perfect, and humans aren't perfect, and we all have so much growing and expanding and learning and correction that we're supposed to be doing. And that's like why we're here on this earth, right? That's what I believe, is to become better. And one thing that I thought was so beautiful was I was actually talking to a girlfriend who I was just like opening up to about, we're just like venting about life and, all things. And she just really impressed upon me that like, it just was like such an overwhelming feeling that came over me, that like your marital vows do mean something. And marriage isn't just about like celebrating those really beautiful like moments and falling in love with the romantic eras and chapters and like shining light on, you know, this hot date nights or the anniversaries. Like marriage is like, there's two sides of the table, right? There's all of that, and that's great. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us in it and that keeps us moving forward. But also there's this other side of like, truly like how beautiful is it to be with somebody, yoked with somebody, or, you know, sealed to somebody, or in marriage and in your vows promised to somebody that is choosing you every day, even in your weaknesses, even in your flaws, even in your shortcomings, even in your mishaps and things that need to make you better. And that is like truly what marriage is about. It's about looking at both sides of the table and choosing to show up for both sides in sickness and in health. And I think like sickness for me, you know, when I was younger, I was like, oh, sickness, like when someone's like not well, but it means so much more, like mentally, like physically, emotionally. People can just be in an unwell place, and that never really made sense or clicked for me until I really was like focusing in on that vow and what that meant, and like that being choosing to show up in your marriage in sickness and in health also means choosing to stay in your marriage and fight for the health and the good times and the beautiful memories and like the romantic part, because you cannot have one without the other. And it is a fight. It is a dog. What is the saying? Dog eat dog? No, that's not right. It is like a get in the ring, get muddy, get dirty, put on your boots, like we're going to work, because that's how marriage can feel sometimes. Even if you have the most compatible partner, there will be times and there will be chapters and there will be seasons and maybe even years where you feel like you don't know if you're going to make it. You don't know if you're going to stay. You don't know if you can get through. But what I've really learned is like what makes a life and a marriage beautiful and worthy of sharing is the ones that have been in the ring, have been down fighting and dirty and willing to stand by each other through those dark, thick, hairy times. And I just felt like I wanted to share this podcast and this topic because I think marriage is so important. I think that we come from this expectation that like once you get married, everything is blissful and you move on and, you know, life, whatever. And we also are in this like culture and society of like, if something's broken, we just abandon and find something new and shiny and it's going to be great. And I think that there's something so building is the word that's coming to mind. There is something so character building and something that is so like refining about truly like not just leaving or quitting something when it's hard, whether it's like a diet or school or marriage or your job, and going through that like refiner's fire to stick with what you committed to. And I always talk to my kids about this, about like whether they like join a club or a dance team or a sports team or, you know, whatever. But like once they start something, they're not allowed to quit. I mean, obviously if there's like crazy circumstances, but there's something so I think like we talked about, I just said earlier, character building about really sticking to something and staying committed because you gave somebody your word. And that is so important. And that is so true for relationships and marriage. And now being 38, so wise, I've really seen that come to fruition in my marriage and what I've learned. And I just felt like that was on my heart and I wanted to share that with you guys. And I think that, you know, as somebody who does have a platform and I post so much of the good, it could be really easy to think that like, oh, their life is perfect. Their marriage is perfect. They're just this great couple and they never struggle. And I'm here to tell you that that could not be further from the truth, unfortunately. But I kind of love that for us and our love story, because that is like the other day, it just hit me so hard. Like, I'm so grateful that I have somebody who is willing to like stand and stay by my side in the hard times and in the times where I'm not giving my best self and I'm not showing up as like my best self. Because I can't imagine something that feels more lonely than imagining like being with somebody who would just leave you or like essentially kick you when you're down, vice versa, you know? And I think that that is just a really beautiful element of marriage that we could consider and think about. And so I wanted to share that with you guys today. And maybe down the road, I can get more into like the weeds of, our specifically things that we've gone through that could help some of you guys. I think more of it is my husband's story to tell. And so I'm treading lightly on my words, but the value and the lesson is there. And it's what I wanted to share with you guys today. But I did post on Instagram. It was a cutie picture of my parents and at their wedding. And I asked like, hey, today I want to talk about marriage on the podcast. I want to talk about what it means to you, ask your questions, give your tips, and so we're going to go over some of those and just give you guys my opinion on what you asked. So the first one says, my husband left my faith and I want to teach our kids both paths while keeping peace. How to navigate different faith paths while raising kids. Don't want to force them to either. That is really tricky because I think that faith and faith culture, there can be big differences in ideals and practices and traditions and things that you would do. And it can be hard when you have a spouse who isn't aligning with those things. There's I think about baptism or like confirmations or even weddings with your kids or just, experiences with your kids that you would do in the culture and in the practice of the religion. And that can feel really isolating to feel like, well, I want to still do these things and my husband doesn't, because ideally it would be great to have a partner who agrees with you and wants to do those things together. I don't think that you both have to be in the same religion to raise a beautiful, God-fearing, God-loving family. I think that it's still very possible, but it is something that you have to check in with yourself on and check in with yourself on for what you want for forever. Because your kids, no matter how you raise them, here's the thing about kids is they have the agency to choose what they're going to want for themselves. And you could both have, think about, run yourself through some scenarios. You could have you and your spouse both be in the same faith and the same culture, the same traditions, and raise them that way. And your kids could wake up one day and want nothing to do with that. They're going to choose their own path. I think the most important thing we can give our children is just genuine honesty and showing your kids this honest representation of what you believe and you truly living those values and that culture to your best heart and self is going to be the biggest example for them. Your kids aren't going to look at you and, hold you accountable for what your husband is or is not doing. And I think that that comes to this fear-based parenting where you're going to be fearful of how your kids will turn out because your husband has been on his own faith journey, when I think it can actually be this really great opportunity for you to just show your kids what you believe and how it blesses your life and invite them to be a part of that. And I think having an honest conversation with your husband and just asking that you both are on the same page and the values that you instill on your kids is the most important, rather than the religious practices. And your kids, it's their life. You need to give them agency to let them choose what they want, and that can be tricky. And I'm sure there will be times where you butt heads, but at the end of the day, what's the most important is a happy, healthy environment for your children. And if you guys can do that and stay married, I think that's the most important. So good luck with that, though. It's definitely that would be very tricky. And, I don't feel like I have all the answers for you on that, but we're here cheering you on and just, stay close to God and in prayer and in word. And I think that you will come across a place where you feel good about your decision. So cheering you on. Tips on how to avoid comparison with other couple or needing a perfect marriage. Oh my gosh, that's so easy to do. And we for sure have done that in our marriage. It just seems, the grass, it's so true. It's so cliche. The grass always seems greener on the other side. And it's easy to compare that with other couples when they seem more in love or more romantic or they have sex more or whatever. But it's at the end of the day, they also have issues that they're facing maybe behind closed doors that you don't know about. And so you just have to really water your own garden, because I think, comparing what you have and what you have built in front of you, it's only going to take away from what greatness you could grow into. And if there's like a couple who's doing something that you admire, that you love, like, yeah, bring that into your marriage, bring that into your life. But there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. Everyone should understand that right here and now. And just comparing like what you guys have to what other people have. Like if you're going to do that in good times, you need to do that in bad times too. Like how are they fighting? What struggles have they gone through? Because comparison can't only be held to this like good, what they're doing right, because compare yourselves to also what they're doing wrong. Like maybe your fights are about like if the ketchup goes in the fridge or on the counter, and they're fighting about like one time he did cheat on her and she can't get over that, So choose your hard, choose your good, and don't ever compare it. And there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. Navigating individual growth and growing at different paces within marriage. That is hard. That is hard because you're yoked together in marriage, but not in like the sequence of life, And I think that like there's times for grace and there's times for patience, and marriage really can stretch you in all capacities and teach you in so many different ways. And no one said it was going to be easy. And we like forget that. But, once you've like built this legacy and these years of memories and these years of life, like it will be worth it, So what do you believe makes a strong marriage, and how do you handle challenges? One thing for me that Jackson is really good at is communicating, and just really like taking time to communicate and get on the same page. Because sometimes when you're married for long enough, or you live with somebody long enough, your thoughts and their thoughts, like it starts to feel like you would assume that they know how you feel, and you would assume that they know what you want just because you've been together for so long and life has been like in this place of like rolling forward for so long. But you forget you have so many internal dialogues and thoughts and conversations and desires, and things change, And so I think it's so good to have communication, like just really good communication, and really taking ownership of your part in the marriage, like your feelings and your thoughts and your desires and your wants. I feel statements are really powerful because they feel less attacking and less finger pointing. But communication would be just like communicating properly would be my number one for like what I think makes our marriage strong, or what would make a marriage strong. And therapy, like just going to a therapist to give you marital tools to just be the best for each other, and having someone professionally help you through that could be such a blessing for your marriage. Here's a tip. I love this. Always remember to say thank you for the small things. I concur. I think gratitude just really makes everyone feel great, and just makes people feel seen. When someone's like, hey, thanks for putting my socks away, like it's such a small thing, but it just is a moment to be like, hey, I see you, and we're not going to get lost in this mundane laundry, dishes, food, groceries, work. Like it's just a small moment to tell your spouse like, hey, I see you. And I think that's really important. So I love that tip. Remember, I need to be better at that this week. Ooh, this is fun. Getting married July 11th. Congratulations. You better send me a picture. Any advice for newlyweds? Also advice on timing of having kids. Oh my gosh, so much to unpack here. Okay, number one, any advice for newlyweds? Yes, sex. Have so much sex. Like anywhere, everywhere. Be wild. Be wild. Be young. On the beach, in the bathroom. Like just connect in that way. Go on adventures and travel. Even if it's just to like the next town over. Take time for just you and your spouse to build those memories of just your early years, because I do truly feel like that's like the foundation of what's to come. Those first years in your marriage, those first moments, like I look back and we were so ready to start our family. I remember coming home from our honeymoon and Jackson was like, hey, stop taking your birth control. Like, let's get ready to have a baby. And we always look back and we're like, oh my gosh, why didn't we just spend more time with just us and traveling and just, like those nights of just staying up till 3 a.m. watching Netflix and getting McDonald's, DoorDash or whatever. Like those are the foundational, like if you're really picturing like a house, like you're really building for the long term. And I think like children are obviously a blessing. And when you bring them into your marriage, they can do so many things. I think children are a great insight and highlight to what's actually going on in a relationship. So if you're having a lot of goodness in the relationship and things are strong and things are loving and things are connected, a child is going to highlight that and it's going to magnify that. But if you're having a lot of disconnect and communication and resentfulness and stressfulness and just things aren't vibing in the marriage, a child is going to magnify that. They're going to highlight that. So it's important to not rush into that next big chapter. Like there's not a perfect, I can't say like she said, what's the advice on timing of having kids? Like there's no perfect time. There's no actual timing. But I do think just getting some experiences and time together underneath your belt is so important before you make that next big chapter and that next big decision. And you'll know when it's right, and if a child comes, but like there's really something irreplaceable about just having those first newlywed years and connection and chemistry. Oh my gosh. Love that time in my life. Okay, this one's a little heavy, so I want to give anyone a warning for physical, trigger warning for any physical abuse. If that's something that feels triggering for you or you don't want to go over that, you can skip forward in the podcast. This question says, what if your husband has physically shoved you away while arguing, but never hit you? Is it physical abuse? Yes. I don't think that there is a scale. And I think that that's actually something that's really dangerous about being in a physical relationship is telling yourself like, oh, he didn't give me a black eye or he didn't give me a bloody nose or I didn't end up in the hospital. Like it's not that bad. And suppressing any physical touch that's unwanted or aggressive. And I think that we can clearly define like when it's appropriate to have hands on somebody and in the middle of an argument when things are heated and it was a shove, that's physical abuse. And it was unwanted and it was done in a way that was like going against your boundaries. That's physical abuse. And the number one thing I can tell you is you don't have to feel like it wasn't on a scale large enough where you can't count it as physical abuse. Like, please don't wait till it gets to that place where you're getting bruises and things are escalating, because once it starts at a level of like, hey, I'm just going to shove her or I shoved her, you need to have a serious conversation, because once that boundary is crossed, the next time you guys get in a fight, the next time he is that angry or that triggered, it's only going to escalate. 9 times out of 10 in physical abuse relationships, it escalates. Like, no one gets with somebody and they beat the crap out of them and they, and they didn't see the warning signs. Like, I mean, I don't want to say never, but usually in physical abuse relationships, it just is gradual and it escalates and escalates and escalates. So you need to have a serious talk with this person and you need to sit down with them and a therapist and you need to go over it together, whether he needs anger management classes or you need a deep apology and him like setting up, hey, this is what I need to do next time I get this angry. Like this is like what we need to put into place to help me, like to help myself. I need to get better. But it is physical abuse, and stay safe. Just stay safe and don't feel like it was insignificant. Anybody putting their hands on you anytime it's unwarranted is not okay. And you can stand confidently in saying, hey, this was not okay. You cannot put your hands on me ever. And here's what we're going to do. And you have to make that tough decision. Like, is this enough for me to be done? Is this enough for me to go to the cops? Is this enough for me to talk to a therapist? Like, you have to check in with yourself, but please do something. Don't not do something. Praying for you. Okay, here's another tip, and it's really good. Read the book, The Love Dare. Read the book, The Love Dare. It saved my marriage. Okay, I'm gonna download that. If you guys have read that, let us know what you think. But she said The Love Dare. Gotta have it. You guys, some of these are really tricky. And I don't know if remember, this is just my advice, you guys. This does not mean you have to take it, but this is just like a friend sitting with you giving my advice. Do you always like your husband? How do you handle days when you don't? No, definitely not. And I know that there's days where he doesn't like me, but I think the glue that keeps us together is the love and the respect and the long road that we have ahead of us and the road that we've come from. Like, we have built so much over our 10 years that there's going to that we can fall back on that love and on that foundation. But there's definitely days where I'm annoyed as shit. And I'm like, I don't like you today. I love you. And I even feel that way with my kids sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I don't like you right now. You're not being very nice. But like, I know deep in my heart, I love them. Right. And I think that you can separate that. But I think every person is different. When she asks, like, how do you handle days when you don't? Like, I think you have to just honor your boundaries. For me, I kind of am the person that like shuts down and I need space. I need to process through thoughts. I kind of need like alone, quiet time. And I think just communicating that with your partner and like what you need and having them like understand that can be really helpful. Jackson's not that way. He's like, let's fix it. Let's talk about it right now. And that annoys me more because I'm like, I need space. I need a process. I need time. But to him, that makes him feel anxious. Me talking in the moment when I'm mad or angry or stressed out makes me feel anxious. So we've had to learn to give and take a little bit with each other in that. But I definitely am someone who's like, give me space or I will fly off the handle and say things I don't mean because I need a process. I need to cool down. I need a moment. But just communicating with your spouse, like, I just need a day today. And I think that's okay. We have the rest of forever together. You can have a day. How to manage your masculine energy as a wife, fall into the new feminine flow. I don't know. I've never really believed in like actual gender roles of like men do this and women have to do that. Like, I am not a personal, like, I think that there's certain things that like work for marriages, like in general, but I've never really like, cause sometimes I feel like I'm masculine. Like, I was raised by brothers and sometimes I do feel like I'm the one to definitely take control, take charge. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm like the man for sure. And I think it's okay. I think being yourself is the best gift you could give the world. And I don't think that you need to try to fit into any expectations or into any roles or into any role playing to like make someone else happy. Like, I would hope that your husband chose you for a reason and that he loved that about you. Obviously communicate with your spouse and like figure out what works for you guys, but you don't have to, I don't think you need to manage yourself. Like, what if you are just great for being exactly who you are? And like, what does masculine even mean? Like, you're better with the drill? Like, that feels sexist. Like, is Jackson just better with the drill? Yeah, he is. I don't think that's sexist. Am I just better at cleaning? Yeah. Is that sexist? I don't know. But like, I don't expect certain things of him just because he's a man. And that's probably hypocritical because there have been times in fights where I'm like, my dad used to do this. Like, why don't you do this? And the roles that worked for my parents aren't necessarily going to work for us and for me. And so I think like maybe you are actually just great how you are and you don't need to fall into any expectations. Just communicate with your spouse. And if there's something that you feel called more to do in the home or in like your life or marriage, great. Like, just communicate that, and like figure out your guys' flow. So how do you only realize now how different men's brains work after you get married? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I tell myself, like, if I don't find humor in something, it will just drive me crazy. And so I have to like laugh about it. But that's kind of what makes like the yin to the yang. And I know some days it can feel frustrating, but maybe just try to laugh about it because we are different. And that's kind of a beautiful thing, right? That's like why we were attracted to one another. Yeah. Okay. You guys, there's so many good ones. I'm trying to decipher like which ones I want to pull from, but okay. So this one is kind of a church-based one again, but this tips for a 24-year-old girl to prepare for marriage. I feel degraded because of our church culture. The church makes you feel like a spinster if you aren't married and having babies by 20. Want to clarify, it's the people, leaders within the church and not the church itself. I get that. And I think like in Idaho and Utah specifically, I'm guessing you're from Idaho or Utah, because it seems like everybody from Idaho and Utah are married and have their first baby before they're even 24. Because the culture is not the expectation, but like, you know, the culture and adaptation of like what the flow of is like, you graduate high school. If you're a guy, now a girl, you go on a mission, you serve it for a year and a half, 2 years, you come home, you find the next step is to find that person and you get married. And then once you're married, you have a baby, and like, you know, that you bust that all out within, from the time you're 18 till, you know, 24. That's like usually just like the trajectory of like what people do, but it does not have to be what you do. And in fact, I tell my kids, I'm like, I will pay you if you wait to get married until after you're 25. Like, even if you feel like you found your person, but think about your freaking brain at age 18 to the time you're 24. It's like being a 7th grader versus being a senior in high school. Like, you are going to grow, you are going to change. There is going to be so much significance difference in your life and in your desires and the way you think about things, and like even the food you eat or the things you like you are going to grow and change and develop and mature so much in that time period. I think it's doing a big disservice to our youth to encourage them to get married young. I'm going to say it, and I might get some flack for that, but the most important thing is not for you to get married young. That is not the most important thing. The most important thing is for you to be married in a healthy, loving relationship. And if that means that you're 40 years old, great, you're 40. There is no time requirement. There is no expectation that you need to feel pressured from anyone. And if I were you, I would start clapping back. Be like, yeah, well, it's better to do it the right way than to get married at 19 and be divorced by 21. Because children, those are freaking children. When you are 18, when you are 19, you are a child. I will say it. You are a child. When you are 20, you are a child. You can't even vote for an opinion of who runs the United States until you are 21. You can't even consume alcohol until you're at the age of 21. Those are put in place for a reason. So why are people getting married before then is beyond me. Why I got married before then is beyond me. And I'm speaking from experience, and I'm getting heated, but I hate that people have this like complex that like, oh my gosh, I'm not married, I don't have a kid yet, and I'm 24. It's like, girl, you are living the best years of your life. Do not feel pressured. Do not feel stressed. Freaking buy a ticket to Paris. Go to the Eiffel Tower. Take hot selfies. Wear a bikini on a nude beach, or no bikini on a nude beach. Go try foods from all over the world. Learn a second language. Get a degree. Like, go live your life, and the love and the marriage and the babies will come. And when that happens, you will have this foundation of who you are and what you want, and you will attract the right person, probably. I'm not going to say it's like going to be perfect, but oh my gosh, if you were my daughter, I would hug you and then I would slap you on the butt and I would say, knock it off. You are just fine. 24, like, you are so young. Just wait, babe. You're fine. You're in the best years of your life. So, okay, let's do one more. And then I think that's a show. We're at 39 minutes. I've been yapping at you guys for a while. Yap. Somebody said, this is just like a quick thought. I feel like a podcast series could be made specifically on marriage with babies and toddlers. Oh my gosh, how much your marriage changes after you have kids, and just surviving with kids in marriage is like a whole other topic. And I would love that. I would love to find somebody who's like a marriage expert though, or like a marriage therapist or something, because it would be so great to pick their brain. And I do feel like it could be a whole topic in itself, because there's so much complexity to that. Okay, let's end on this one, because it just seems, I don't know, it seems like a good one. Does knowing I deserve better always require a hardline ultimatum? I think you actually answered that for yourself. If you're in a relationship and you are having any kind of thought or any kind of doubt that like, gosh, I think I deserve better, like, and then saying, and I'm just trying to infer what you mean by this, but saying like, does that always require a hardline ultimatum? I think like what you're like doing here is like asking yourself for permission to like know when it's time to be done, like what you're willing to put up with until it's time to like step out or be done or pull the straw out or whatever. Like, you're kind of like setting up I feel like you're wasting time. You're wasting time and you're giving yourself excuses because you kind of already know that you deserve better. And in fact, you're just like putting it off because there's like this part of you that's hoping that maybe it does get better, that maybe they do treat you better. And so you're saying like, okay, well, when this or this is crossed, this boundary or this line is crossed, or when this happens, then I'm going to leave. But I think it's probably a ticking time bomb is what it sounds like. And you're just trying to hold on to hope that maybe it won't. But I think like in your heart, if you know that you deserve better, like you probably do. And if you do feel like you deserve better, I don't think that that always means stepping out or being done or divorce. I think that means just like having this realization that like you do deserve better. And what does that look like? Maybe that looks like putting in work and going to a therapist personally and with your spouse. And that means better communicating or better systems so that you guys can have a better marriage. But like life is too short to be unhappy. Life is too short to be in this hamster wheel of like what you're allowing yourself to put up with until you like can't do it anymore. Like that's, I feel like the definition of crazy, right? Of just like the same things happening over and over and over and over. And you're just, and there's like this voice in the back of your head that's like, you deserve better, you deserve better, you deserve better. Like honor that voice and listen to that and like take time to discover and go into like what that means and what that looks like. And if there is damage to be repaired, can you repair it? If there is work to be done where it could improve, like, can you do that? Like, I'm not just saying like, peace out, be done, like file for divorce or break up or whatever. But I think you should 100% lean into like, if you're feeling like you deserve better, you probably do. And I'm giving you permission to feel that and to honor that and to just start going down that road, even if it's going to be hard. Because chances are it's going to be hard. And that's like the thing too with marriage. I want to end on this is sometimes like in order for our marriages to improve and our relationships to improve and to get better and to be like beautiful and happy again, like it's going to get harder before it actually gets better. But there can be beauty in the work of being willing to like go down that road. So that is the episode for today. I hope you guys were able to find some nuggets in there and digest them and that it helped you and that you feel a little bit better about where you're at and that you can just kind of decompress with me here and just really think about what your relationship means to you and how you can improve and how you can hold yourself more accountable or how you can hold your spouse more accountable and how you can just better show up in your marriage in sickness and in health. And that's today's show. I'm so excited for the coming month. I have some guests in mind, but I love to know from you guys always, what topics do you want me to cover? What do we want to talk about? What's the 411? What's going on? All the things. I think next episode though, that I have in my notes, I already have the title. It's Everyone is a Liar. So I'm just going to leave that with you. Next week's episode is going to be Everyone is a Liar. And we're going to leave that with you. You'll have to tune back in to see what we're going to talk about. And I love you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.